Welcome, everybody, to the City of Farmers Branch study session for Tuesday, July 16th. We're going to be moving around a little bit in our lineup for study session items this afternoon, but first off is citizen comment. And I will remind everybody that when I call your name, come up to the podium in the front. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And on the topic of your choosing, anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. Please refrain from any disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of city staff, a board or commission, or the city council. First up is Nancy Holland. Nancy Holland. Price Troshan. William Kirby.
Your microphone isn't working.
Hmm?
Maybe your microphone isn't working.
Jason Ennis.
Mayor, are you sure these are not for city council
Signed
meeting
up.
tonight?
That's what I have for this. So Lynn Chafin. We can call them again later at council meeting, and I'll do that. Okay, seeing that none of those people are here, and based on our special guests that are here this afternoon, I'm going to go first off to item C2, which is receive an update from Atmos Energy regarding future energy needs, the implementation of strategies, and future direction.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Jawaria Tareen, Deputy City Manager. I have a representative from Atmos here to present to us an update from the Atmos. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here tonight and allow us the opportunity to give you an update on Atmos Energy wraparound for the past year. Joining me this evening is our operations supervisor for the area, Russell Curley, and our operations manager for the area, Dustin Powell, and they're happy to answer any technical questions. I understand that you have a full agenda tonight, so I'm going to run through this, and y'all know where to find me, and if you have any questions or you'd like to invite me back, I'm happy to come back for another session and just do a deeper dive in what we're sharing with you this evening. So again, I'm Jan Rugg, Manager of Public Affairs, and this is our Fueling Our Energy Future report, and there will be some specifics that we'll discuss as they apply to Farmers Branch. As most of you are aware, we are the largest singular natural gas distribution company in the nation. What that means is that there are other companies that are dual fuels, which might be electric and natural gas, but we are natural gas only. We provide services in 8 states. And sometimes when you think about it, it's pretty awesome to know that this is the footprint of your company and what we do. And we are daily providing service here in Farmers Branch as well as other cities in the Metroplex. So this is an overview of Atmos Energy as a corporation. Those are communities served, employees, our spend, investment in communities, and this is the thing that we like to really tout is our investment in our system, in our communities, because the things that you care about the most is how are we delivering natural gas reliably in Farmers Branch, and what is the safety associated with that. And these are the aspects that we want to talk about when we discuss what our company's doing. So this is an overview of numbers, and then we're going to talk specifically about Farmers Branch. And when we talk about miles of pipeline, that seems like a lot, but it's, as you know, it's a network. So this is how we deliver natural gas to customers that are commercial and residential. So I know that for the city, you have a sustainability committee, and you're looking at varied things as they impact the sustainability in your community and conservation. In 2017, Atmos Energy made a commitment to move into reducing our greenhouse emissions, and that impacts various things, but we're on target to be in line with what our commitment was by 2035. Some of the things that we also talk about is energy choice. As you well know, we're in an era of electrification, and we believe that we are part of the energy solution for our country, that it's not just one fuel. And so what we propose is that we keep a level of choice for customers and residents. So these are as an example of the states that have enacted legislation that provides that choice for residents. And, you know, we're all about that in Texas. How do we have our choices? So the things that we drive every day home is our safety in our communities, our safety for our employees, as well as safety in the construction projects that we do. Safety drives every aspect of what we do. Okay, this is our operations facility in Plano. So our facility in Plano is the training facility for our entire corporation. If you're hired for a technical position for Atmos Energy, you will come to our training facility. You will receive hands-on training. You go back to the field, you implement that training, come back in, you get more training, but we have standardized training across our entire corporation. So if you're hired to be a service technician, you're working in Texas, there's an emergency or disaster in another one of our 8 states, we can send employees to those areas to provide support to the employees that are working those disasters. We have at other times provided mutual aid to other companies as needed. But this takes place in Plano, and if y'all ever come visit, we'd love to have you. Okay, our safety and our first responders. So our stars are in the corner here. We provide support to police and fire because in an event of a natural gas emergency, they are first on scene. They provide for the safety of the community, the safety of our workers. And so during those times, you know, we rely very heavily on them. And giving back to the first responders is a very big initiative for us. We're happy to support, whether it be in donations for safety equipment or training, because we count on our firefighters to support the safety of our employees. Okay, so one of the things that you hear about regularly, and I've interacted with Jeff a lot on this, you see the warnings that he sends out that says natural gas leak, notifications to avoid an area. One of the largest risks to our system is third-party damages. So this is Gus the Gopher, and he's our safety ambassador, and his messaging is about calling 811 before you dig, and you will see this notification on a lot of our advertisements and promotions that we do throughout the community. And if any of you are natural gas customers, he regularly drops in on your bill or on your online account. And this is Miss Rosie, and she gives information about the safety of natural gas and if you think you smell a leak. We have a lot of promotions that we do through the schools. And I don't know about you, but I remember when I was a child, we would have police, fire, health officials that would come to school and visit and provide a message for us, and we took it home. So the children are a very good vehicle for taking messaging home to their parents. And again, this is just another wraparound and touch point for us to provide our safety messaging. Okay, we're going to talk about the delivery of natural gas just for a moment, and this is an overview of from the wellhead to what we call the burner tip. And this is what it looks like. Atmos Energy is not in the exploration or production business. We are in the delivery business. We have transportation assets in 3 states, and then we have distribution, again, in the other 8 states. So this is an overview of what that looks like, how the gas gets to your home. Okay, and this is homeowner safety, and this is probably the bulk of our messaging to customers, and I feel like y'all are probably impacted by it a bit right now because we've had a project in Farmers Branch that feels like it's been going on for, what, 2 or 3 years? And so what we're replacing is the mains in the alleyways or in the street, and then service lines to the customers' homes. And from, you know, everything from the main to the meter is our responsibility, and from the meter to the house is customer responsibility. But when we're making these improvements, we're upgrading everything to the customer's home. So that's new meters, wireless meter reading, also any safety improvements that we're making to our infrastructure are taking place during this time. Okay, leak detection and monitoring. Y'all see a bit of this around here. I'm ahead just a little bit of where we'll be next, but we do leak surveys. And following a leak survey, we assess anything that's an indication of a leak, and it is graded. After it's graded, we schedule those repairs. Our goal is to eliminate all leaks because that, number one, makes for the safety of the community. Secondly, it helps with the reduction of methane emissions, and it improves our infrastructure when we make those repairs. So there it is. That's our AMLD. That's automated mobile leak detection device. We do have standard ways of detecting leaks. However, this device, and you see the instrumentation on the top of the vehicle, it detects natural gas in parts per billion. So we're running surveys, and probably what, Jeff, every other week I'm sending you a notification because we do notify residents of this work. It's this vehicle runs at night while the barometric pressures are low, and sometimes it's concerning to residents if they see a vehicle driving very slow, either on the streets or in their alleyways. So we provide a notification that we'll be making these surveys. Following the surveys, we assess that information that we've gathered during that time. We go back, investigate, and that's how leaks are detected and repaired. And this has probably been one of our biggest successes in removing leaks from our system. Okay, fueling safe and thriving communities. We have pillars. These are our giving pillars. And the things that we focus on is the future of our children, heroes, first responders, veterans, and also our neighbors. And I really would like to share that, in following those basic guidelines, Atmos Energy strongly supports Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD. We've had a program of donating book vending machines, and we are placing those in various schools in the ISD. And the principals use those as a reward for the students. So if the student is student of the week or student of the month or has just even had a great accomplishment somewhere along their educational path, they get a token, and the token allows them to go to the book vending machine and buy their own books. So they have books in hand when they go home. We, again, support police and fire. And another one of our large partners is MetroCrest Services. We have been partnering with them for more than 20 years. We provide assistance at various levels. We've been a sponsor of the food bank. This year, we're a sponsor of the mobile food pantry. And we're also a partner with them with our Sharing the Warmth program. So we have a program that's called Sharing the Warmth. It is an opportunity for our ratepayers, customers, to provide additional dollars onto the amount of their bill. Those dollars are partnered with other dollars provided by Atmos Energy and then redistributed in our communities. MetroCrest Services is a Share the Warmth partner. What that means is that they get financial allocations from us, and they can use those dollars to assist their clients with gas bills, new service line repairs, and even appliance repairs if that's needed. Okay. Fueling our energy future, and this is our story. Is Atmos Energy is here to be part of our future. Natural gas is affordable. It's safe. We have reporting that comes from the American Gas Association that what these numbers are about is the savings to homes that have a balance of natural gas and electricity, and the savings that it provides over a period of a year. And we're kind of proud. We've gotten good rankings from our customer service. And this year our customer service group was ranked number 1 in this particular survey of customer satisfaction. Okay, smart energy of choice. Again, how many customers are using natural gas, the savings, and how that contributes overall, because there are so many other aspects to what we do, cost savings to families, businesses, and natural gas is here, we hope, to stay. And this is, again, reflective of Texas. Okay, and we also fuel economic growth. I know y'all get calls every day, businesses that are looking to relocate Farmers Branch, we get those calls as well. And one of the questions is, can you get natural gas to this area? What does it take? We have a processing facility. We need high temperatures, et cetera. So we are here to support your economic growth. Okay. Any questions? And I've passed the document that is a breakdown for Farmers Branch specific. And if you have any questions related to that, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you would like to, if you have a question, because we're on tight time frame, if you would like to email the city manager and he can get those to me, I'll get you responses. But just let me know how I can help. And I thank you for your time.
Jan, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, does anybody have any questions? Councilman Jackson?
I have a question, Mayor. Thank you, Jan. Sure. So you talked about the automatic leak detection vehicles that drive at night and they're
Yes.
sensing leaks, and when you find them, then you'll address that. Does Atmos have a program or a log of how old certain pipes are and a schedule for replacing those ahead of finding leaks? Or is Atmos purely reactive to detecting leaks?
That would be an operations question. Russell, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Yeah, so,
Can you come up just so we can
to the
record?
microphone?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
thank you.
Yes, sir. So we do have a risk model that we use to analyze our system. That's based off of historical data, leaks that have come up in the past. Pipe type, is it steel, bare steel, old poly? What items are going to go into that risk factor? And we have a calculation that basically spits out the high risk areas or higher risk. And that's what we typically allocate our capital dollars to tackle those areas first. So it's not totally reactive, but of course the car, as it does come through at night, it's going to triage leaks and give us a kind of an immediate need that we need to take care of. And then we also have that risk model for future planning.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for. We have something similar for our water and sewer pipes and such, and a schedule of those higher risk, older, different materials, vulnerabilities, and so that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Anything else?
Council, any other questions? No? No? All right. Thank you very much, Jan.
You're welcome.
Next up is going to be item C9, receive a presentation regarding the advanced funding agreement for the reconfiguration of Valley View Lane. And while Shane is here, I will also announce that we have Cecil Clements, who is the project manager for the I-35 project that's going on right now, and she's here also to help answer any questions that we might have. So, Shane, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I guess it's still afternoon. I didn't expect to be up here this early. So last month, we initiated discussions regarding a possible reconfiguration of Ivy Lane. It's between Denton Drive and Nestle Drive. We discussed an advance funding agreement, which we had applied through COG, which is being funded by TxDOT. So this location between Denton Drive and Nestle is right in the heart of the downtown Farmers Branch form-based code. It's originally established in 2002. There's a revision in 2012, another one in 2019. And then in 2021, you had the I-35 corridor study, which consultant was brought in, and that actually expanded the boundary of this PD 86, which is the downtown Farmers Branch form-based code. So for those unaware, what is the form-based code? It's an ordinance. It sets up the land development regulations in the PD. So essentially ordinance is a law. The intent is at some point in time, either through city's proactive nature or through redevelopment, you're supposed to develop the streets and other things in accordance with that ordinance. But the goal of this was a downtown with a different mix of uses. But with the form-based code, the focus is not on the usage of the buildings. It's actually the form, the structure of the buildings. What do they look like? And so if you read through the code, between the regulating plan, the street type specs, the building envelope standards, architectural standards, you're looking for a discrete, uniform facade, not separate individual buildings. There'd be almost no parking up front. There'd only be on-street parking. All the other parking would be in the rear of the buildings if it's developed according to the code. So it'd be alleyways. So separate individual buildings that you see currently with the strip retail center, former tire shop with it, maybe at the moment, with all the parking in the front, that is not the way this is supposed to look in the future. So since today, since we're talking about a road, the street type is going to matter, and so that is specified within the plan itself. During the I-35 corridor vision study, you had residents show up and participate and provide their desires, what they want to see I-35 look like. And the two biggest things they mentioned were safety and connectivity. And then for those of y'all that showed up at the active transportation public meeting, the overwhelming feedback for those at that location and also the POCO survey was just connection and safety. So that aligned nicely with the I-35 corridor study. So what would this reconfiguration look like? Well, the purpose of it, again, is it meets the PD desires. And then it focuses on, gives us space for provide pedestrian movements, connections across I-35 and within the downtown area. There are some benefits to road diets. Recent study by Johns Hopkins assessed 1,100 different road diets just to see what the impacts were of narrowing lanes. Does it increase traffic crashes? Does it reduce them? What they found is by narrowing lanes, it does not increase the number of crashes nor the risk of crashes. What it does show in a narrow frame of 30 to 35 miles per hour, it actually reduces the number of crashes at non-intersections. So a small positive there. But for us, we're looking at this road, if we're going to create these pedestrian movements, create on-street amenities such as tree wells and things like that are called for in the code, how do we get there? The only way to get there is by reconfiguring the road. You got to create space for these. And the only option we have to meet this is reducing lanes. Federal Highway Authority has an informational guide about road diets out there, and that was assessing basically 4 lanes to 3 lanes. So for this 4 lanes, it's typically a 2-lane road going one direction, 2 lanes coming the other, reducing it down to 3, so 1 each direction with the turn lane in the middle. So long as the traffic count, the average daily traffic, that's what ADT stands for, is less than 23,000, you can go from 4 lanes to 3. The sweet spot is 15,000 to 17.5. But so long as it's less than 23, you can go from 4 lanes to 3 based on the recommendation. That number will come up again here in a graph. Here are the dimensions of the street type, just so you see what we call for Farmers Branch, if we were to build it in accordance with the form-based code as presented in our ordinances at the moment. One of the concerns we heard at the last meeting and since then is, we got what does I-35 look like now at Valley View with all the construction going on and what's going to look like in the future. The previous configuration was you had 2 lanes. We had a discussion in both directions, which really kind of bottlenecked everybody up. The other challenge is they reduced the signal timing down to 20 seconds. So not many cars could get through and you reduce the number of lanes. The layout here is what it's going to look like in the future. You have 3 through lanes, 1 shared right turn lane, both directions, a dedicated left turn, both directions. And the signal timing goes back to 45 seconds, not the 20 seconds you have now. So you should, those of y'all that come westbound now, they've made it to 3 lanes. There's already an improvement, I think, for folks trying to get through because you have 3 lanes to get across that intersection, but you're still stuck with 20-second timing at the moment. So since the last meeting, I'm gonna try to think through, all right, if we reduce it down to 4 lanes, do we have any of the roads in Farmers Branch that may look like that, may have similar traffic volumes? My first thought was Valwood. It intersects with I-35, so we should have folks kind of doing the same traffic movements. And it's already down to 2 lanes in each direction. It doesn't have the turning lane like Valley View does, but that was the closest thing I could come up with in my mind. So TxDOT is a website for traffic counts. If you look closely at the picture, you see these yellow little thumbtacks. That's where their traffic data was available. So you had Valley Branch, the railroad crossing right there. They took readings there. At the feeder road, there's 1 reading. B Street, and then right about Rawhide Creek for Valley View. For Valwood, you had one at Valwood Denton and Valwood and Josie. So if you look at the data, and I apologize, I'm left-handed, so the data is probably in reverse order from what y'all many people look at. My apologies. But one of the unique things with this for Valley View is if you look at 2014 to 2019, the traffic volume's actually gone down. You're an anomaly here in Farmers Branch. It's actually about a 5% reduction overall per year. The TxDOT model for planning shows a 1.7 to 2% growth. So these contradict each other. So these numbers may not mean much to folks who try to think, how else could we show this data? And so we reached out to Kimley Horn within the past couple weeks and asked, could you put together a simulation using this data here to show what that looks like in a moving model? So you're familiar with what the situation looks like now. So I'm going to show you 2 simulations. One for current data that you're seeing here for 2025. Then the other one is projecting 10 years into the future. And so we had this contradiction here. We had a 5% decrease in the data that we're seeing right here, but the planning model shows a 1.72% increase. So what do we come up with? How do we predict this? We ended up going 1% increase. So it was trying to show an upward trend in terms of traffic, not the decreasing trend we're seeing at the moment. They should have new data coming out shortly in the next year or so. So we'll see where the actual data falls. At this point in time, I'm going to show some couple of simulations. So these simulations, let me give you the assumptions before you watch it. They're based on a 15-minute peak period. So we looked at the PM peak period, when is the traffic the highest? And that's what Kinley used for the data. It's going to show 2 lanes in each direction. The turning lane's still there. And the biggest challenge we had is trying to get the signal timing in. So you're going to see signals actually incorporated as well. First time we had is just free-flowing traffic, which was not realistic for the road. So this is sped up at 5 times normal speed. So a 15-minute segment. This is a 3-minute video. We tried to show all different vehicle types. So you'll see some different widths. We also included the on-street parking. So what you're looking for is where is the traffic back up? We have the storage capacity for this. And what's the conflict when someone pulls out? If you look really close there, occasionally it's a little faint. Motorcycles don't show up in this. They're really hard to see. But we also have 18-wheelers going through as well. It's about 1 to 2% of the volume. So we tried to show all traffic conditions and not just put cars. But this is just current numbers.
Shane, who put that together?
Kinley Horn.
Who is that?
It's an engineering firm out there. We've used them for a couple other projects. They have the staff to turn something around pretty quickly. One thing you're going to notice is there's no turning movements. To do turning movements, you'd have to actually take vehicle counts at each intersection and see how many folks are turning onto the road, how many are turning off. But they were able to get, like I said, the traffic signals. So here's the train. There's a tiny little green signal in there for the train. It doesn't show a train coming through. But you have B Street and Denton Drive signals. So we tried to get this as realistic as we could at the short time frame we had. So we're about halfway through. We continue for the whole 3 minutes. It's your choice, but this is what it looks like for current conditions.
They didn't include anything further to the west with the
No, we tried to just
I-35.
focus on the AFA area. And so you're basically coming off the 35 and the west side there. It's coming underneath 35, coming to Denton Drive first. Anybody that wants to see more of this scenario, y'all?
Okay.
So same thing here. This is 2035. So again, 1% growth. You got a semi rolling through there at the moment. Otherwise, everything else is kept the same. You got the signal timing, the signal lights, the train. Just a slight increase in terms of traffic based on the data we had. So you'll see a little bit more queuing. So 5 points of the model, you wouldn't necessarily queue across a railroad track like that, but they had a pretty limited time in terms of get this together. And we want to make sure we got the major points, which was the traffic volumes and the signals themselves.
Okay.
So this also, same thing, 3-minute video covering 15-minute peak period traffic. I can let it play all 3 minutes, or y'all can say okay and we can move on.
And Shane, you said that railroad, that train activity is included in this model. We just can't see a train
They
crossing.
didn't have time to do all those little details.
It's built into the lights and timing and all
Correct.
of
We just
that.
went to the DART website. It shows when they show up at Farmers Branch Station, both directions, so what the timing should be for, based on those.
Okay.
So we just looked at the arrival times, both directions. Crispy arrival and departure, and how you look at it, but. So I gave that to them off the website, and they came out and actually physically just timed the signal, went out on a Friday afternoon and sat there and counted how long both directions at all, the 2 intersections.
Okay.
So that's, again, simulation of what this data right here shows. So going back to the reconfiguration, again, this contributes to the downtown vision. By knowing the roads, you allow people to get across the road quicker. You create space for more pedestrian movements, the tree wells. I know you all talked about this picture last time, but the point is it's uniform, and that's the intent of the form-based code. It doesn't have to be this particular layout. But the point is this is what the code's shooting for, is a uniform front there with discrete entrances into the shops. I made a misstatement last time. I said on-street parking would be on both sides. It is only on the south side. The planning staff caught me after the fact, so my apologies for giving me bad information last time, but it's only on-street parking on the south side. The north side is more focused on wider sidewalk and pedestrian movements. So again, with the AFA, there's a $3.5 million total project that covered oversight by the state. City's reimbursable amount is 3.19, and the total cost of the city is $131,142 to redo the road. Some other things you need to know before you all have a discussion is, in the near future, we will be installing new storm sewer in Valley View. It needs to be upsized to handle the current drainage plus future proposed development out there. So that'll be going down Valley View. You will have a trench cut for the storm sewer. There's a water line that needs to be replaced, is my understanding, based on LCRR, just because of the pipe type. We need to get that one replaced. Sidle also is a trench cut on Valley View. Sewer will also be replaced, but my understanding that'll be pipe bursting, so it'll have minimal impact on the street, just probably a couple potholes here and there, but that should not have the impact to the street. But nevertheless, over time, staff has kind of kept this part of Valley View maintenance to kind of a minimum, with the expectation that we would redesign this and reconstruct it in the future. So sometime in the next few years, it will be rehabilitated and overlaid again. And so at that point in time, if y'all choose to walk away, it's your prerogative, just they'll be paying the full cost for the road itself. Our biggest concern at the staff level is right now we have $9 million of funding tied up with COG and TxDOT for the West Side Art Trail, 2.2 to 2.6 for Denton Drive, and another one for Valley View and Mercer for a crosswalk. On top of this three, and just we'll have to disclose my understanding going forward when you fill out an application if you turn back any money. So from the staff perspective, that's our biggest concern is, does it impact our funding in the future? Hopefully not, if y'all choose to go a different direction, but that is, from the staff perspective, that's what our worry is. Can we continue to get funding for these projects? So at this point in time, I'll try to answer any questions you may have for me. Otherwise, y'all can have a discussion amongst yourselves and figure out what we do from here.
Thank you, Shane. Obviously, this has been a topic of deep discussion. There's been a lot of information that's been put out. Some of it has not been totally correct. And but I invited CECN to come specifically to address, because it plays into all this, comments that have been made that the reduction in lanes is going to back up traffic for such a long distance. It's going to create delays, et cetera, and so would you come up and introduce yourself and then tell us maybe a quick overview of the I-35 project and how you see what was just presented sort of working with what you all are doing?
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me, Mayor. Thank you for having me, Council. Just want to touch a little bit. Right now, you guys drive it every day. We've reduced capacity on Valley View, and so it's 2 lanes in each direction. Can you hear me? Okay.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Susan Clemens. I'm the district engineer for TxDOT in the Dallas District. We cover 7 counties on the eastern side of the Metroplex, including Dallas County. So as you know, Valley View itself has been reduced to 2 lanes in each direction. We've really eliminated the right turn lanes. The one thing I'll add, Shane, to your presentation, we've also reduced capacity on the frontage roads. So the northbound and southbound frontage roads have been significantly reduced as well. Before you had right turns and left turn lanes. Now we just have 1 lane or 2 lanes on the northbound frontage road, 2 lanes on the southbound frontage road. what that has done is really limited our intersection capacity. And so when we're really looking at it as far as level of service and operations, and the ultimate configuration, we're going to have 3 through lanes on Valley View with turn lanes. The bigger key is we're also going to have turn lanes on the frontage roads as well. And that's going to allow us to get a lot more vehicles through those signalized intersections than what you're seeing today. The main reason you're seeing such the big backup, not only is it the 20-second signal timing, but it's really, we can't get very many cars through the intersection in that 20 seconds because we're only feeding 2 lanes, if that makes sense. And so when we're in the final configuration and we've got turn lanes and we can separate folks that are wanting to right turn that can, yield on red if you so choose. Really, that intersection capacity for us is key in that traffic operations. And so increasing the signal timing in 45 seconds, think about it, in 20 seconds, we're feeding 2 lanes, you're barely getting any cars through there. 45 seconds, and we're as wide as 5 lanes on the frontage roads, you're going to get a lot more vehicles through there. So I think you're going to see significant improvement in operations at the frontage road intersections, no matter what you choose to do as a council on Valley View itself. But to us, the key is, and you'll see it along the 35 schematic, there's some locations we only have 2-lane frontage roads, but at each intersection, we're widening out to the 5 lanes. And the main reason is, the key is getting as many vehicles through that signal cycle as we possibly can. So we think you'll see a lot of improvement regardless of what you choose to do with Valley View. But bear with us, we've got a couple more years of construction. There's really no other way to build it. We've got a lot of improvements to build. We've got to reduce capacity, but our goal is to get in and out as fast as we can. But here to answer any more questions with Shane, any way that I can help.
Council, this is your time, so Councilman Roman? No questions. Councilman Reed?
Yeah, you said a couple more years ago, for that intersection, is that what we're looking at for total timeline?
That's correct. Early 2026 is when we're anticipated to be done. The main reason is I wish we could go and just build Valley View, but a lot of what we're doing is impacted by what we're doing on top. And so we've got to build the main lanes as well. And so we'll shift traffic back and forth. I won't lie, it's going to be painful, but once we're done, it's going to be a lot better. So if you can bear with us a couple more years.
Well, I know, so I've been gone for a week and coming here today, that going westbound at I-35, now it's 2 lanes going straight through in a right turn lane. And that made it, even that little bit, made it a little bit easier.
So if you can imagine, eventually we'll have that capacity in every direction. And so hopefully it'll be a lot easier in every direction.
Okay. Are we just asking questions on
Either.
I-35 or anything?
Yep.
Okay. So with that in mind, what's the timeline for if we were to move forward with the reconfiguration? What's the timeline on that?
So next steps for us will be the utility relocation. So we need to get the storm sewer done, the water line replaced, those kind of things. There's no point doing a brand new road and tearing that thing up. So we're moving forward with those now. Got to make sure we get those done and out of the way and complete the design. So we're going to put the design on hold to see which direction council wanted to go with this. If you're going to approve it or not. Otherwise, we're just looking at rehabilitating what's out there as it exists. So we've kind of put our engineer on hold, waiting to see which direction y'all wanted to go. So if we decide we're going to move forward, as soon as y'all, if that's the direction y'all want to go, we're trying to engineer those to complete the design. So we can get that done and get a bid ready to go for once the utilities are completed.
Okay.
I know for the exact timeline that I don't have, 'cause I wasn't sure how long this is going to take. I didn't prepare, 'cause I wasn't sure how this conversation would go tonight.
Okay. And I know we have to tear up some of the road to do some of the, in regards to the pipe replacement and stuff like that. Would reconfiguration help us with the cost for that project?
No, because that's got to happen no matter what. I mean, that's just a set distance and size of pipe. So we got to upsize the storm sewer to handle the flow currently and what's coming in the future. And really for the water line, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just switching the pipe type away from, I believe it's galvanized, to something that complies with LCRR. So it's the pipe type that matters with that one.
Right, well, I'm talking about like resurfacing or anything like
Right.
that. Is there any way that the two can if one piggybacks off the other, that there's a cost savings?
In this case, we just gotta get the utilities done first. We don't wanna put a brand new cut right through the brand new road. So-
Right, but what I'm saying, so when putting the
Could you
cut
do them
in,
concurrently, is that what you're asking?
well, not concurrentently, but yeah, kind of piggyback, yeah.
Yeah, our plan right now is just to replace those utilities first. Oops, sorry about that for those, just got their
Okay.
ear exploded.
And I just wanted to reiterate that the total cost to the city is going to be approximately, after all the money goes back and forth, about
In
$465,000.
this case, it's 131,000, that number, let me go back one slide. That number at the bottom, the 131, 142 is our out-of-pocket expense for the concrete work. You're gonna have to pay for the utility replacement, so those are gonna happen regardless, so the storm sewer and water. But for the concrete, if you use the AFA, it's 131,000 is our out-of-pocket expense for the city.
So the difference between what's reimbursable to the city and the
Okay.
estimated cost?
So, in the information memo, I talk about transportation development credits. So part of the thing we use were those transportation development credits, they're not real dollars, but because you have policies the city has adopted in the past, we can use those instead of finances to actually provide part of our match. There's a small portion, because they broke this up into two projects, where we do have an actual cash match we're providing. Plus, we have to pay for some of the state oversight. So although there's a delta there, about 400,000, that would be our normal 20% match. Normally, yes, we'd be providing all that money via cash, but because of the policies we've adopted by applying for those TDCs or transportation development credits, we can use those in lieu of cash.
Okay, so
But this means this is our, if the project for some reason were to exceed this dollar amount, we'd have to find the dollars ourselves somewhere. Does that make sense? That's what we couldn't exceed that. Everything above that, the city's gotta go find money for.
right, got it, okay. I know the overall plan is to build the long-term goal is to build like a downtown area that's walkable. What, have we thought about what is going to happen with the existing businesses that are on the road? You know, if we're thinking long-term, we've got the muffler shop, we've got the
Right.
garage, we've got the little strip
So
mall over there.
those don't meet with that form-based code. So the expectation is you would have, the picture here, the new buildings with redevelopment would have unified front. All the parking's gonna be in the rear and not in the front of the building anymore. So in terms of form-based code, those are not compatible in terms of development standards. So if you don't want this look, then, you got the entire form-based code that dictates, the buildings are all gonna have this uniform look.
Okay, so that'd be on both sides of the road?
Yes, sir.
So those businesses would have to relocate?
Correct.
Okay. Parking's only gonna be on one side. How many parking spots, how many,
As you can see in that, there was not many, just based on what our current conceptual layout
12.
is, yes. Ideally, I'd love to see more, but that's kind of where it was drawn up based on our conceptual, and that's what we shared with Kinley. Here's what we got at the moment, based on roadways and other things.
okay. And can we assume, hate to use that word, but can we assume that the right-hand lane in each direction is gonna have bike lane capacity?
Question is probably, we have Sharrows out there now, and so since the speed is going to be dramatically reduced, I would assume we'd stay with the Sharrow versus a separate bike lane. We only got so much space with the reconfiguration we could use. The bigger thing is making sure folks can get to the shops easily by walking. I would expect we continue with Sharrows to this particular location.
Define Sharrow.
So if you look down Valley View right now, there's an indicator with like a double chevron, and a
Right.
bicycle person below that. That means drivers, you need to share a lane irrespective of bikes if they're in this
Right.
lane. Bikes entitled to that lane as much as you are. So.
Okay. And then with this new configuration, like you said, the expectation would be most likely parking to the rear of of those buildings. We know that there's plans for a lot of new buildings, especially on where Denton hits Valley View with the Star Center Sports Complex, multifamily, refurbishing of the multifamily behind the Firehouse Theater. Does the model that you showed, the traffic increase, does that take all that into consideration?
You looked at what the projected growth would be for the area based off text dots. So like I said, we couldn't do full-blown traffic counts at every corner just because of the time. It would have taken 2 or 3 weeks just to collect that data. we didn't have 2 or 3 weeks to collect data and get the simulation done. But they had a projection, like, so theirs was 1.7 to 2% growth. But like I said, we're actually showing that negative the decline in terms of traffic volume. So we're trying to develop what's a fair assessment, what's a fair prediction for the future. Me and the consultant had to wade through that. All right, we don't want to show a negative trend. What is an actual realistic positive growth trend? And we sell it on 1%
Okay.
based on the data we had.
Because the goal is to get more traffic into that area to support these shops and
Correct.
stores and businesses and all that.
I mean, my hope is you'd have folks riding their bike or walking there too, hopefully, versus just vehicular traffic. But yes, and get people to slow down and spend some money there.
Okay. After that, excuse me. That's all I have right now, but
Fine, we'll come
if I
back.
have something back.
Councilman Baird?
Thank you both for your name. The businesses that are there now
Yes, sir.
would have we can't kick them out or have them change their buildings or anything like that, can we?
I'm going to turn to the planning department. This is not my area of expertise.
Hi, I'm the Mayor Director of Economic Development Tourism, but we can't just kick them. I think that they will have to redevelop along with the plan, so.
So we can go and say, you have to rebuild your building, or?
We can't force them because they have already been there, but if they wanted to change anything as far as any of the front end, or if they wanted to increase growth because of parking, then we would have them have to change up to the current standards of the PD.
Okay, that was the question. Regarding it's a federal grant that's paying for most of this?
Yes, sir.
So can you explain exactly the strings they put that require this? Did it say specifically you can only have this if you reduce lanes? Or was it a more general statement?
No, our application, if you look at the funding agreement, it says you'll reduce your lanes from this street to this street.
So
So
was
what
that
was-
them saying that to us, or y'all saying?
That was
that
our
to-
application, but again, that's based on this form-based code, that this is what it's supposed to look like. So trying to
Okay.
find money that the city wouldn't have to spend to achieve the goal of this form-based code. The
Okay,
application was made several years ago. I think it was late teens is when we made the application.
okay.
But it did specify again, the terminus, Project Termini, Denton Drive, Nestle Drive, going from 6 lanes to 4.
Okay, because I guess, Ben, road diet's been really negative here for several years, and so it's concerning to me. In fact, I'm pretty sure both Councilman Jackson and the mayor in their newsletters years ago said that they were both against road diets. And so it's a little concerning that we as a city put that in an application for this money, knowing what the thoughts were of the residents and even some of the politicians in the city.
Yes, so road diets have always caused a strong response on both sides. The newsletters we're not privy to, so I don't know what was in those or not in those. I don't know to this day, for the most part, what's in any newsletters. But the form-based code would be where council would have adopted what the land use would be for the city and what staff would go for based on that code to seek additional funding sources to bring forward. Again, with the fact that it doesn't tie council's hands, council still has to consider whether they would like it or not. And if the form-based code is a challenge, then we need to maybe go back and look at the code and see, does it need to be updated to reflect where the council would like us to be at this point in time? Staff's just following the guidance they have existing from council for projects, and they do this quite often. What are the adopted plans the city has, and how can we go and find additional funding sources to lessen the impact on the budget? And we have multiple plans. We have a trail plan, we have a parks plan, we have multiple plans that we can use for those. And a lot of times when you're looking for grant funding, they look to see that you have a strategy, a plan, approach to utilize those funds as part of a larger perspective. And even road diets here, the one on Denton Drive was a better fit. The council went forward with that one. It fits what the area is looking for. Still, it's part of that plan, but maybe not in this location. So it's really up to the council to final say, but staff's always going to go look at the plans we have that are adopted. And we try and bring those back ever so often for council to review, but in the form-based code stationary, it did call for more density on the front, more walkability, and then parking in the back to move the traffic behind it. So as you drive the city, you don't see a sea of parked cars. You see the frontages and walkability where people are enjoying the shops. And eventually that causes the area to transform and become more of that downtown destination area. We don't have a true downtown, but the center of commerce essentially where people will do their leisure and recreational shopping in the city. So it's got the transportation components, it's got the right density, it's got the right location, but that's why staff would go for it. And these aren't just apply for it now. Usually these take quite a bit of time. Shane, how long ago did you apply for this?
I think it was Sustainability made the application for Public Works at the time, but I think it was 2018 or 2019 as far as when the application was submitted.
So long-term. So it's not as quick as that. So that's where you'd see the current situation. The city's obviously come a long way since then, so it's how we are here today.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Shane.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Councilman Neal?
Richard,
Councilman Jackson?
Sure, Mayor. I want to clarify the comment that Councilman Baird made. The road diet that was rolled out a few years ago, I was vehemently against because that actually stretched all the way from Marsh Lane
Big
to 35. And there was far more of the city that was being reviewed for road diet back then than what we're looking at now. I was very much against that. Back then, and particularly the conversation was around people going east to west in our city. Those are the folks that live in our city. Folks going north and south, they're coming through our city. We had speeding issues, traffic issues, or a lot of issues that Road Dot was supposed to address, but I didn't feel like anyone, well, the Valley View Lane road diet, all the way from the east side of the city to the west side of the city, was going to add sidewalks so that people could walk that entire distance. I don't know anybody be interested in walking from Marsh Lane to Four Corners. There's just not anything at Four Corners to attract foot traffic to walk that far in typical Texas weather. So I was very much against it back then. You're correct. Last year or 2 years ago, council approved this PD 86. Part of the reason for that was to effectively, for the first time, create a downtown area for Farmers Branch. Four Corners was a nice central location, but it wasn't downtown. We also were focused on connecting West Side to the rest of the Farmers Branch because Mercer Crossing folks want to feel more connected. It's downright dangerous to go under 35 today, or even before the construction started, was dangerous to get from one side of the city to the other side. So that connectivity was very important. And this overlay, this style of downtown urban shopping, retail mixture environment was approved, what was it, last year or was it 2 years ago?
These are ones I'm aware of, that first tile over there.
2021, okay.
I think,
So-
I guess.
So it was a few years ago. That whole plan was intended to create the downtown area around Mustang Station. No. So Shane, the simulations are pretty impressive. While they're incorporating signal timing for trains, the one thing they are missing is traffic coming in off of Dennis, Nessel, out of the Rose Garden, a few of those side streets, which
Right.
there's not a lot.
It's also got traffic exiting onto those as well. It's missing both directions.
Right, both directions. We've got Dennis Lane, there's a school there, so every morning, every afternoon.
Right.
That particular red light on Valley View Lane, I can't stand. It takes forever to get through there. And then, of course, on the weekends, you have a lot of sports events and such at Oren Good that create more traffic. But what I found more interesting than the simulations themselves was the average daily traffic from 2009 has actually gone down for all of these streets to 2019. Looks like the studies are every 5 years, perhaps, right?
Yeah, so we're expecting new data from TxDOT. Do you know when they do traffic counts? I hate to put you on the spot. I think it's
We do
this
it
year
annually.
next.
Yeah, it should be pretty soon. We should
Okay.
have counts.
So at B Street, that's ground zero for Mustang Station.
Yes, sir.
That one had the most dramatic drop in traffic since 2009. 2019, Mustang Station was there or under construction. There was, what state was Mustang Station in at 2019? Were businesses up and running? Was the Cedar Creek Brewery going?
No, that didn't launch until 21.
Was it 21? Okay.
2020, right? It launched right when COVID hit.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just coming off of the landfill NIMBY project for me, so that's,
Okay.
that's my world.
I'm just trying to understand that intersection, because again, that's Mustang Station Central there. Today, back then, it might have been Construction Central. And that might have had some impact on the average daily traffic. But still, even compared to what the study said, and if you go back a couple of slides to the study, who conducted that ADT study? Was that Kimley Horn as well?
You know what, this one right here, this is a paper from the Federal Highway Authority,
Okay.
Federal Highway Administration.
So Federal Highway
It's a
Authority
guidance
says,
document.
you can go from 4 to 3 lanes if you're anything under 23,000 ADT,
I feel like it's,
but a sweet spot is 15 to 17, right? And so if we go back, we are,
that's why I put that blue line in for 23,000, just to show all of our traffic
we're,
counts.
we're at or below
Correct.
that sweet spot range. And so even with what's projected to be a 1.7% increase in traffic, I'd venture to say it's going to be higher than that. There's still a lot of capacity for a 3-lane Valley View lane.
So again, this is going from 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane each direction.
One lane,
turn
each,
lane.
what,
That's at
you got
23,000.
one each side and a turn lane.
Center turn lane.
But that's,
That's for the 23,000 number.
right, but that's what the study says, a 4 to 3,
In this case, you're going from 6 to 4,
right,
not
okay.
4 to 3. It's-
Yeah. So the studies, the data is still showing there's plenty of capacity for that, right? Am I reading it correctly?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding as well.
Okay, all right. The majority of the feedback I've gotten from, from residents, that's been negative, well, all of it, it doesn't have data. It's perceptions based on experience, observations, people that drive these lanes every day. Today, it's a big open wound because there's a ton of construction there that causes daily frustrations, and Season just explained, how that's going to be relieved quite a bit. But I think that this plan is a very forward-looking, future-thinking, downtown area, enhance Farmers Branch type of plan. And all the work that prior councils went into to come up with this plan, I still support. I think it's still a really good plan for that area. Again, categorically road diet across the city, I wouldn't support. There's too much north-south traffic that's going to get bummed up and just cause our residents a lot of headache. But I think for the downtown, creation of downtown purposes, I still support this.
Thank you. So I'd just like to enter a couple of comments, if I could, and with a couple of questions also. So is there any efficiency to be achieved in doing this road project if the council decides to move forward with the City of Farmers Branch Road project in conjunction with what's going on with TxDOT and the I-35 project? Are there,
When we sat through the discussions with Michael Morris at the time, we were looking at 35, the betterments. We had Denton Drive being proposed and Valley View. You could separate them all out. That means once you're doing 35, then we would have started on Denton Drive. Then after that, then started on Valley View. You should have, not your time frame, but added another 3 to 5 years on top of that for us to do our work. The thought was, let's just do them all at once, get them all over with, and then walk away. Leave this area alone, leave it as it is, but make it, if we're gonna make it bad, let's do everything at once and then be done with it, not string this out for the residents.
so it would shorten the pain period, so
That
to
was our
speak,
thought at the time during
to
that
do it
discussion.
that way, okay. And again, our outlay of $131,000 for this, we're basically getting almost 27 times, a 27x ROI from the state and federal government to assist with this, correct?
I'm gonna trust your math, I don't have a calculator, but I'm gonna trust you.
Okay. So this plays into the comprehensive plan, correct?
Yes.
That was presented to the city just most
Yes, my
recently.
understanding, sir, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but yes, it's my understanding this.
Sure. Sarah Bergman, Deputy
Speak
Director Deputy Director of Planning. The comprehensive plan that was adopted last year incorporated the I-35 Vision Corridor Study recommendations into the plan. And that was the document adopted in 2021, which does call for this type of connectivity in this area. I do want to clarify just one thing about the PD 86 expansion that was mentioned. The I-35 plan was adopted in 2021. One of the recommendations that came out of that was to rezone PD 86 and expand to the west side of 35, and that was approved in April 2023. So that's the most recent.
Okay. And within that was also the form-based code.
Right,
That was
that's the
mentioned.
PD 86.
Yes. Okay. And that plan, that comprehensive plan was put together based on many citizen input meetings that were held, correct?
Absolutely. It was about a year and a half process of public engagement. And the I-35 plan itself had a public engagement process. That was mostly virtual due to COVID.
Okay. And then after that, it went to planning and zoning and then came to council?
Correct.
Yes, okay. So Councilman Jackson said something very important, and I want to reiterate that because when the whole, quote, road diet, end quote, idea came up, I was dead set against it. Now, unfortunately, Mayor Dye, who brought that term up and put it forth, didn't do himself any favors because he said at the time that he wanted to look at Valley View, Josie Lane, Webb Chapel, Midway, and Spring Valley. Well, my own logic tells me that if you live in a city and you have a growing population, you don't necessarily take lanes of traffic away. That equation doesn't seem to balance. And so that's why I was against it at the time. But I served on a council with John Norwood, Mike Baumgartner, Bronson Blackson, Crystal Rentana, and they were all for the project and in some form or fashion, but not a total road diet of the city. So fast forward, here we are today. I'm not picking on anybody, but Councilman Roman has put out at least 2 emails where he's blaming me for the road diet and saying the road diet is back. And I think, one, it's not fair. It's misleading. And while he cited me in both of those, I explained why I was on board with this plan for this very specific and isolated area of our city because of what we were trying to do, which was to create a downtown area and do that, taking advantage of some of this grant funding that was available. I realize that traffic is congested because of all of the construction right now, but we have our TxDOT representative who's telling us that the plan is not to build more congestion, it's going to be to relieve and hopefully eliminate all of this congestion when they're finished. And so, and that's what I've been reporting back to the council for the past year, because don't I ask you almost every month at the Mobility Commission Coalition meetings, are we on schedule? How are we coming?
Every single month, yes.
Thank you. So I'm trying to stay on top of it and then report back if there's anything unforeseen that's come up. You know, one of the things that the city has already done, we are going to create, and we've already taken the steps to create additional foot traffic in this area by virtue of, one, bringing in more restaurants at Mustang Station, but number two, by building the Stars Multi-Sport Complex. And people will be walking around the area trying to find places to eat and relax when they're not over there. So there is going to be increased pedestrian activity in that area. And so I believe we need to have accessible walkability, sidewalks that can accommodate folks, sidewalks that will keep people safe, and perhaps slowing traffic down in this isolated area is not a bad thing. And yes, I did say that one of the goals was to slow traffic down so we would get people to notice the businesses that we have here in Farmers Branch. They're not just flying by and passing everything up. I think we invested to bring these businesses here and to help build this area with our partner, Western Securities. Why don't we sort of finish that and make sure that those that are here and those that are to come become successful or remain successful? So, I'm trying to think back on previous discussion, and I don't know why some have voted no. And it's your prerogative, but I would like to know and understand, because either you know something I don't, or I'm hearing something that you're not hearing. And I know, just as I've been a salesperson my whole life, and so when I'm making a presentation, my goal is to get you to yes. And if I haven't done that, then I haven't communicated my message effectively or efficiently. And so I'd like to know, what is it that either you all understand that's different from what I'm hearing, just so we can try to get on the same page. Roger, you didn't speak, so.
I wanted to hear everybody else because I've been thinking a lot about this. And I do have a question about the form-based code. Does the form-based code dictate or heavily rely or in any way on a road diet or narrowing of roads or streets?
So the form-based code has a street section for every road within PD 86. That includes Valley View. The idea is when any site along that roadway redevelops, they build to that street section or as close as possible. With Valley View, it's such a large road that, we recently had the pickleball development that went in on Valley View. We did not have them narrow the road to 2 lanes in front of that site. It's not feasible.
It's not required from a form-based code perspective.
It is required. Jet Street, they did the improvements, Denton Drive, the escrow funds, there's options, but the PD does make that a requirement. So if the direction from council is to not build to the street section, we would want to look at probably modifying that code.
Okay. And then with respect to the comprehensive plan, I've been hearing multiple times, we spent a lot of time and effort on that. It's my understanding, is that a guideline or is that an ordinance?
The comprehensive plan is more of a guideline. PD 86 is an ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the comprehensive plan is more of a guideline, so.
Adopted by ordinance, but more of a guideline.
Right. And I'm hearing comments that this would hopefully eliminate traffic congestion once it's completed. But at the same time, I'm hearing that, we're expecting increases in population, increases in apartments, more restaurants, the Star Center. It just seems to me there's going to be more activity overall. And so my thoughts are, I was okay, and I like the idea of the Dennis Drive sort of road diet perspective, and I was hoping we could see how that turns out, almost as if like a trial basis to see how that turns out. I'm not real comfortable with a major thoroughfare through our city such as Valley View, reducing that on the hope of eliminating traffic congestion, given the apartments that are going to be put up right in that area, right off there. I just don't see how that traffic reduction would occur with the increased population in apartments. So I don't know right now. I'm not really on board with this project right now, so, in this particular location. So that's my thoughts.
I wanted to go back, revisit something that the mayor said in regards to the Stars Center, the sports complex there, the multifamilies, all that. One of our goals here, not this specifically, but is to bring more businesses to the downtown area. And if it doesn't have that walkability, if someone is at, you're with your kids at the sports center, they're in a tournament or whatever, you get time off between games, you want to go grab something to eat, you want to, whatever the case may be. If you don't have the walkability or the stores there, the shops there to go visit, you're going to jump in your car, you're going to drive someplace and go elsewhere. Maybe it's Irving, maybe it's someplace else. If you set an environment that is attractive to bring more businesses in, more shops in, a breakfast place, whatever it's going to be, a deli, you're going to get those businesses there. A lot of the feedback I got from folks, residents, number one was, making it difficult to get under I-35. Well, that problem is going to be resolved. So that's not something that's going to sever the west side from the east side. I actually got a few different emails with people who were talking, they wanted the increase in walkability, specifically stating they had an experience they were over at, I think it was Roots, they were going to the Firehouse Theater afterwards. And they're like, we're taking our lives in our hands to cross those roads to get over there. So if we want to draw people to that area, and we're not looking just to draw people to Mustang Station, we're looking to build businesses up and down that road, even west of I-35, to draw that in, build a tax base. People want more, things drawn there. If you don't make it conducive to those businesses, they're not going to come, and you're not going to have that environment, that atmosphere. There's one other point I had. Oh, and the thing is, with the complexes, the apartments, it's not like all these people are going to be jumping in their cars at the same exact time and driving on the roads. You might increase flow a little bit, but it's not going to be as massive as people picture it. Well, the other thing, the feedback I got was, well, if it's more difficult for me to get to the, talking about west side folks, over to the east side, well, I'm just going to go to Irving. Well, if you don't have the businesses and the shops, where are you going to go? To Four Corners and go to Big Lots? What is the draw to come into that area?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We have to give people a reason to come to deeper into the city. Joseph and Valley View being referred to as the Four Corners area is deeper into the city. But when you don't have the shopping that people expect or are used to, and there's no reason. When you don't have the housing around it, which would support the new investment in the area, that presents a problem, and so that's why all of this plays together. The proposed townhomes that would go in there at Josie and Rawhide Creek, yeah, it's not just one little area. It all plays together. It's so interconnected. And that's where the council really needs to step up and have a vision for what they want for this city, for moving it forward. Understand that there's some people who live here who don't want anything to change. I've heard it loud and clear. They want the city to be the same as in 1968. The problem with that is if your city doesn't grow, it's going to die. And much of this investment, whether it be from TxDOT or our own investment from our taxpayers, will be for naught. So that's part of your responsibility as councilperson, is to help move the city forward, positive direction. That doesn't mean selling out the city. It's managed growth. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I have a question for Shane. Shane, can you go back a couple of slides to the Valley View Lane, reconfigure that one right there? The second tile, benefits, improved safety, reduced speed, better pedestrian experience. Was that as a result of the study?
Yeah, so Johns Hopkins did a study recently about looking at multiple, there's 1,100 different road diets. And again, for that narrow speed range of 30 to 35 miles per hour, they did say by reducing lanes, which usually comes with the road diet, we see reduced traffic accidents, not at intersections.
Okay, all right. So that wasn't just our hope or
No, this is the
expectation.
first.
This is
Yeah,
proven by studies of people that study this kind of stuff. And
correct.
So I hope this passes, because the work that's been done to plan this area, and it didn't start with this particular template. It was a much different template many years ago, and it's evolved into what we have today. And all of that is based on data and studies, simulations like we saw tonight. And I've heard zero data from anyone that says this is going to be causing more traffic and more problems and speeding is going to be dangerous. I've seen no data that supports that theory. So if you're opposing this, I'm asking you to please provide the data that says that this is going to be the opposite of what the data says it's going to be up here.
I have something to share on the data. Shane, I think the study you're talking about is that one titled "A National Investigation on the Impacts of Lane Width and Traffic Safety."
Yes, sir.
So I've read through that study.
Good.
And one of the things that I did find interesting was the extrapolation that you're creating from that study and applying it to Farmers Branch. When we look at the data is based off of information that was collected among, I think it's 7 different cities across the country. And those include Dallas, New York City, Philadelphia, Salt Lake City, Miami, Denver, and Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And none of those cities, I think, are comparable to Farmers Branch. And so I think when we look at the data, it's difficult to interpret that and be able to speculate as to its applicability to a city that's a suburban area.
They all have suburbs that are very similar to.
But
Branch.
the study did not look at the suburbs.
Well,
They
we don't
looked
know that.
specifically at those areas.
We don't know.
I do know because I read the study. And one of the other things that I keep hearing is capacity. As we look at the data that you've pulled from, remind me of the authority that does that.
TxDOT.
Was it TxDOT? No, there was another one, the traffic.
I used, all data that's presented up here is from TxDOT.
Okay.
I want something that everybody could go access.
So as we're talking about the capacity, I think we're equivocating the word capacity to no traffic jam. Just because we have capacity to have 5,000 vehicles doesn't mean that we can have 5,000 vehicles and not encounter inconveniences to travel throughout the city.
Got it.
So I just want to clarify that, because it sounded like we were saying as long as we're within that capacity, we're not going to have any traffic issues, but I don't necessarily think that that's true.
And my experience with that is when the DART signals malfunction, it doesn't matter what we have, There's buildup there. That's why it depends on, I guess, what your level of comfort is. If you want to get through, you don't wait more than one light cycle, and that's what mess with you. If that's your expectation, then we got to change a lot of roads. We got to make sure everything matches. If that's your vision, we need to be conveyed that information. But it's up for y'all to decide what is an acceptable level. We can tell you what we think it is, but in this case, we're discussing things like this. What is my comfort level? What do I want my experience to be driving through Farmers Branch? I don't want to wait more than one light cycle. Tell us that. So make sure we plan for accordingly going forward.
And I think for me, I thought it was acceptable how it was before. And then, of course, the construction started, and I get that things are
Yeah,
going to happen throughout that process, but I had no issues with it as it was before. And then the other thing is I look at the simulation, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something. I didn't really see a really significant difference when I looked at both of them. And one of the questions that I had was particularly about the data and what assumptions were used. Part of what it is that I do for a living is create financial plans in multiple different iterations to stress test someone's viability in their pursuing their financial independence. And one of the issues that I encounter sometimes when creating simulations is what assumptions are being used to
Correct.
produce that.
Anytime you have a model, that's what you want to ask.
Garbage in, garbage out,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And so I understand that you have some assumptions in place that are fairly general, but there aren't any, you didn't have the time to put together and examine the very specific nuanced situations of Farmers Branch. How many cars do we anticipate in the apartment complex that's coming on Denton Drive? How much traffic do we anticipate coming from the multi-sports complex? How many apartments and how many vehicles are going to be attributed to other types of multifamily development that's not just happening in that immediate area, but also on the western portion of the city? And there's also other uncertain factors that we're not accounting for. What happens when this council is done and there's another council that comes and they have other grand ideas to bring in either apartments or big attractions that draw people to the city? There's other uncertain factors that we're not accounting for that also give me concern. So as I'm looking at the data, I have a big problem with the reliability of it. That's kind of where I'm at. And I get that you're selling a point. I've worked at financial planning enough to know when I'm being sold something, and I listen very carefully and very analytically to the information that's being presented. And I just, that's my thing. I have issues with the reliability of the information that's being presented to be able to give me a great deal of confidence in knowing that what you're presenting and what you're saying is going to be with a very high likelihood happening.
Got it. I can tell you, when they do traffic counts, they put those little strips across the road and they just manually count how many vehicles, how many axles drive over that. So this traffic count data is collected by TxDOT. And yeah, one of the things we don't have, which you just brought up, Councilman Roman, turning movements. That applies to the apartments too. When they come out of the apartment, which way are they going to go? You have to make that projection too to have this discussion. Are they going to go southbound on Denton? They go northbound on Denton? They go to Denton, go down Valley View, they get on I-35. All turning movements. That is a detailed analysis. You are absolutely correct. But I'll tell you, this data is publicly available. This is what all cities use to build their models based off of, is the TxDOT data. But they don't have their own software and do their own counts.
But we hired a specific engineering firm to not just have general data that's available to the public, but to have a more very specific simulation of what the impacts are to our community, to Farmers Branch, to that specific area.
I wanted to use something everybody had available, and it was readily available. So we agreed on this data set from TxDOT. Our own software that we recently purchased shows the data is actually much less than this. I didn't want to use that because you can't see the data. You can go out and find all this data on TxDOT's website. So that's want to make sure it's something everybody could go look at and say, well, Shane cherry picked that data. This is what was publicly
not saying you
available.
cherry picked the
I'm
data.
right, not you specifically, but just in
making a
what people.
specific observation about the reliability of the
Right.
data that's being presented.
Got it. But the other one was the TxDOT, they do a planning chart for what do we need to do with our roads. And so
Sure.
that growth, I talked about, this 1.7 to 2% growth, that was from the TxDOT planning portion of their website. But they actually, these traffic counts are readily available if you want to go find them. But good points, thank you.
Ready.
So for those reasons, I just want to make sure that I'm clear and provide very clear direction to you. As I'm looking at it, my opinion hasn't changed from last time. I don't think this is a project that I'd be in support of at this time.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That was it.
Okay. Council, we do need to provide some direction to staff on how to proceed from here. And so,
Can I just kind of make a summative
Sure.
statement? Seems to me the two things we're looking at is if you want to get from Luna to Josie as quickly as possible, don't do this. If we want to create a downtown area that people are going to want to visit, spend time at, spend money at, draw businesses to, this is something we should definitely consider.
Well, and I think that's what it is. I mean, there's from the residents that I've spoken to, and many of them have a representative capacity. They've been elected to specific roles to represent a great deal of people, both out in the Mercer Crossing community, but also in the immediate area that's being impacted. And they had their different reasons for not being in support of it, but they weren't. And when you have a downtown area, it attracts the issues that they've mentioned. They talked about parking, they talked about congestion, they talked about homelessness, they talked about crime. There's all different kinds of reasons, but if I can, based off of the studies that I've read, that type of densities, those are the issues that people encounter. And so I think maybe more so people are against the downtown concept.
well, would be contrary to what was said during all the public hearings, the year and a half of gathering data and coming up with the comprehensive plan. They indicated that that is what they wanted, and that's what they wanted to see the city move to. And we had at least one of those visioning meetings in the Mercer Crossing area, in their amenity center. So, again, their voices have been heard. They were part of this process, just like folks from other parts of the city. And that's what, I don't know how many people total, hundreds, participated in all that in total, but it's not just like there were a select few.
Sure, I could pull the exact number. We had in-person and online feedback, so it's a large, in the hundreds, number of people, but I don't have the exact number.
Okay.
Mayor, one other question. Remind me, in April 23, we approved the form-based code. What was it in April 23?
So the form-based code, PD 86, has been in place since the early 2000s. In 2021, the I-35 corridor study was adopted. One of the recommendations was that form-based code expand west to create a cohesive look and feel on both sides of I-35. So in 2023, that expansion west was approved.
Okay, it was the expansion west to expand what we already had in mind. Sorry, I'm having allergies here. That sort of centralized or that downtown-like area go across 35 so that we could optically bring the west side closer to the center part of Farmers Branch.
Right, the west side has some unique characteristics and the code accommodated for that, but the general look and feel, the type of streetscaping, the pedestrian focus was carried over.
Okay, all right. And Councilman Roman, I'll remind you, you supported that. In fact, you've been a big proponent of the west side feels like you're part of Valley Ranch. And we need to do more to develop Farmers Branch to bring that west side closer in. And that was a big part of that discussion last year. I knew I was remembering something last year. I just wasn't recounting it exactly. But that was a big part of that discussion. And I remember being part of the I-35 corridor study and making sure that Valley View 35 intersection is going to be bright. It's going to have a little bit different lane angles, for people turning on those service roads. It's going to have some nice Farmers Branch, the tree and some indentions and some lighting, wider sidewalks, protection for pedestrian traffic and bikes. All of that was done to try and bring West Side in closer to downtown downtown Farmers Branch. And now we're talking about years of public engagement, multiple city councils, now multiple mayors that have kind of worked this down, and we've got our signature on it now with the Mustang Station area and the Valley View project, where data is saying go back to that other slide, it reduces speeds, it's safer. And we're going to sit here and predict that, well, but more apartments is going to actually not result in that. I just, again, if we want to rely on data, and our data is not going to be perfect. We don't have a crystal ball, and we can't precisely predict what people moving into more apartments or more homes or businesses are going to do. But we've done the best that we can, and in some respects, this council is taking some risks that Farmers Branch is going to grow in a way that this council has understood from its residents it wants to grow. And now all of a sudden, there's this messaging out there that we've got all these apartments, all this traffic coming, and this is going to be a complete bust. I don't buy it.
So I remember that specific discussion that you're referencing, and I do remember supporting it. And I actually reviewed that presentation. I anticipated that coming up tonight. And actually, what I specifically said was, I am in support of this insofar it doesn't create issues with people moving from the west side to the east side. If we're talking about lane reductions, it's not something that I can support. And in fact, immediately after making that statement, you said, I believe I support Councilman Roman in that belief as well. So,
And the data says it's going to be safer, it's going to slow
Well-
traffic down, and everybody knows that we want to slow traffic down in Farmers Branch. So you
But-
can't have both.
but we're also talking about, we're forgetting, you're overlooking the impact of making this a downtown area. I mean, we already have issues with homeless people coming because of the DART station. And I think this is just going to promulgate that issue that we're having. Even more so, I mean, look at
Based
downtown
on what?
Dallas. Based off of the research that I've read. I mean, I read it whenever we were talking about the Tom Cusick thing. I read about the density and the impacts on a community such as this.
You just said based on downtown Dallas, right?
Not based off of downtown.
Well, that's what you just said. You said based on downtown Dallas, but you also said a moment ago, Dallas, New York, Philly.
He didn't say
Don't
downtown
apply.
Dallas
You
at
did.
all.
You said, look at downtown Dallas. The problems that downtown Dallas have, you're predicting Farmers Branch is going to have those same problems because we want to move from 4 lanes to 3.
I based that off of a research study that was conducted, and I said, look at Dallas, which is, if you look at the abbreviations of DART, it's Dallas Area
You have
Rapid
research.
Transit. So that's to transit throughout the Dallas area. And so if this becomes a downtown area, is it feasible, is it possible that people are going to come that are homeless and are going to be more prevalent in the community? I don't know, but we do have that issue now. That's what I'm saying.
We do. We do. But that shouldn't stop us from growing and pushing Farmers Branch forward progressively.
I think.
But we also, as we're talking about the data, you mentioned something earlier. We've had since 2020, this has been going on, and all of a sudden we now want to do a simulation when we've had similar concerns going all the way back to 2020. We've had time to put together a simulation, to have the engineers come in. I'm not looking for an exact data point of exactly what's going to happen, but I think we're far from it. That's just the feeling I get. That's my personal opinion there. That's not based off any research study or anything, but I just don't feel comfortable.
Can I ask?
Yes, sir.
Depending on if we decide not to move forward, what happens with the grant? All the,
I'll call them, tell them we're not going to do this. They would take the money from us and try and hopefully keep it in the area, redistribute it to another city that has a project that's shovel ready to go. The biggest concern at the regional level they have is there's a infighting at the state level. And the governor wanting to take funding from the Dallas area to another part of the state. And so he's trying hard not to lose any of the transportation funds. That's a bigger picture discussion, really, probably more than what you need to know. But what they would do at the local level is take the money and reapply it to another project that's ready to go. There's not everybody gets
So-
funded. All the people in there, these folks kind of on a waiting list, they're down below.
got it, thank you.
then I guess I'll phrase this like this. I'd like to see the city take the bold step to move forward and make the improvements for the betterment of our community. But that's up to you all to decide. So you need to express your preference as to whether we move forward or not, because staff needs to know what to do. We can't keep holding them in limbo.
I don't support the road diet.
Do you support the creation of a downtown area?
I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that, Mr. Attorney, the discussion today is limited specifically to discussing the road diet proposal and not anything other than that. So I think staff is looking for specific direction on that. Is that right?
We're discussing the AFA agreement, yeah.
Okay, so certainly not in favor of the road diet.
I'm in favor of it. I think it's going to have a positive impact on the downtown area over the long term, and it's worth the short-term inconvenience.
Very good.
I'm not in favor of it.
Okay.
I'm supportive.
Okay.
So I'm in favor of a downtown area, but I don't like this particular location. I'd hoped to get the Dennis Road road diet together and see how that produces before doing such a major impact to a thoroughfare in our city. So I know the timing doesn't work out well, but at this time, I'm not in favor of that.
One clarification, Denton Drive or Dennis?
I mean, Dennis, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure. Okay,
They're
perfect.
doing a road diet over there where they're building the apartments with retail on the bottom. I remember being, Denton, I remember being on planning and zoning when we had multifamilies coming in and we were trying to advocate for more retail because we heard a lot during the comprehensive zoning meetings about the desire by the residents to have more retail. And we had advocated to see if the multifamily developers would put retail on the lower portions. But there was a big problem with that. They weren't able to lease those locations, so they went to just use additional apartments as opposed to retail. So that's sticking in my mind, and that's why I'm hoping this other location that we're doing the road diet already to see how that retail develops. And if that proves out to be a very good retail area, then maybe we can consider something else. But right now, I just see this as a major thoroughfare in our city, and I'm reluctant to go forward at this point. So.
Very good. You have what you need?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. How much time?
Thank you, Shane.
Thank y'all. Appreciate the discussion.
Okay. Very quickly, I would like to go to C3, which is receive an update from Woven Health Clinic. And we will have a hard stop at about 5:55. So
Mayor and Council, Jennifer Rainey, Assistant to the City Manager. So today we're receiving an update from Woven Health. Jackie Rakowski, Woven Health's Executive Director, is joining us again. She provided their update in June, I believe it's June 4th. As a reminder, Jackie is newer to the organization, so she may not have the exact details, but she's done a lot of research to gather as much as possible. So a quick reminder, the contract with Woven Health Services is via social services funding agreement. In 2023, that was authorized at $50,000 per year for a 5-year period. And then funding is contingent upon annual budget appropriation. And that's where we're at now. So during that the 27th meeting, Mayor Lynn, along with council members, or Mayor Pro Tem Roman, council members Neal, Reed, and Jackson requested an additional update be provided. And Jackie Rakowski is here now to present that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me an opportunity to come back and talk more about Woven Health and our services here, and hopefully answer some questions that you may have. So I've shortened the presentation and kind of tried to narrow in on some of the questions that you had, but I did want to talk about all the patient services that we provide besides primary care, preventative care, women's health. We have specialists, dermatology and neurology. We, last year, as I had mentioned, we did not have mental health counseling as much because we did not have a counselor for most of the year. We do have one that started about 2 months ago, and the increase in patients that we're seeing for mental health counseling has really taken off. And that is of no cost to the patient. That is through a grant that I received, 2 grants, actually. We do nutrition counseling. Again, that is at no cost to the patient. It is through grant funding that we receive through the American Heart Association. We have deeply discounted labs. From my understanding, a year ago, LabCorp, which used to provide labs at no cost to our clinic, has rescinded that and no longer provides free labs. And that's across the board for other nonprofit clinics as well. And then we recently partnered with Dallas Medical Center to provide discounted occupational and physical therapy for our patients. And some in-kind services are the eye exams and glasses at no cost again to the patient from Essilor Foundation, mammograms through Methodist Hospital, cervical cancer screenings and prostate cancer screenings through partnerships with Moncrief Cancer Institute, all in kind. Our new patients, what we did do is for new patients, as part of your $30 contribution, we are providing your annual labs at no cost to you. We are picking that up through the $30 donation and funding that we receive. And the medications that we get through our partners like Direct Relief, AmeriCares, and AMAP International, we are really building our inventory up of things like insulin that our patients need or high blood pressure medications so that our patients, are not, especially if they're newly diabetic or newly diagnosed with hypertension, we're not just sending them to the pharmacy to pay for a medication where they may not have the money. We will give them that medication at no cost to them so they can try it out first before we even prescribe it. And then we reach out to like St. Vincent's de Paul to continue providing that for free if I wasn't able to continue getting it, because sometimes these organizations don't always have it, but we try to stock up. So I wanted to talk about our current statistics from January to June compared to last year. And so last year, we did have more, at this time, more total visits, 691 compared to 651 this year. But we do have more unique patients this year. That has grown. We have about 20 new patients this year. And my thing that I had said last time was that I really wanted to do more outreach to the community. And as being somebody new, going to meet with businesses, going to meet at the apartment complexes, I've been visiting churches to let them know. I actually went to go visit the Branch Church, which is down the road, and they said they had no idea we were there. And we've been there for over 30 years. So I was really surprised, which really made me think we need to do our work and get out in the community more, even though we do attend a lot of events. And then so those are some of the other numbers here. Again, behavioral health is a little bit lower, but again, that is increasing. So the first 6 months of the year, the value of services for 2024 is $121,000 approximately. Patient visits for 2023 was 196 overall. We are forecasting approximately 1,300 patient visits as that grows. One of the things I'm doing is, again, like I recently went out to a business to talk to him and his employees about we'll talk about the direct primary membership, but about providing care to his patients. And from that one visit at a dry cleaning service, I registered 9 new patients. And so that is what I am trying to do in Farmers Branch as well. So we've been getting $50,000. It's about 4% of our overall budget. And those also are the costs that are contributions that patients pay. And just so you're aware, if a patient can't pay that, I don't like turning anybody away. So, they know, the staff, if somebody has an issue paying, come talk to me. Can we refer them to MetroCrest Services, who also helps to pay for certain clients' healthcare if they qualify for their services. So these are just some demographics of our patients that you can see. A little bit more, again, as I mentioned, females are the highest portion of our demographics, and the average patient age is 48. So the Woven Healthcare Plan, this is one of the questions you had. So when I had started last year sometime, the board was talking about ways on if we don't get funding from some places, which is something that has happened with the clinic, how can we remain sustainable, keep bringing in that revenue stream into the clinic to keep the clinic open and keep providing as many services that we can provide. And so they came up with this membership model, the doctors on our board. And this is something, it's non-traditional healthcare. So it provides unlimited care for either members or employers to buy for their employees, sort of like a health insurance. It doesn't include hospitalization in that catastrophic portion of healthcare that you might pay for, but it does include all the services that we provide is in that membership model. And then, and the goal for us is to not just individual members who come or patients who come to our clinic a lot, this would really help them to pay a membership fee monthly, but also to provide an option for businesses to provide some sort of health care to their employees. And you can see everything that's covered. And again, this also, as their members, it also means that they get to see any partnerships that we have with other providers. Like I'm reaching out to other specialists like cardiology, and podiatrist is a new one that will probably be coming on board with us, and they will have access to all of those services as well. I also wanted to show you, this is the breakdown of the fees. It's based on age. Obviously, the younger you are, the less it costs because the utilization of services will be less. For employers, it's based on how many employees that you have. And you can see those numbers. I will tell you, if someone wants to ask, we currently have 65 individual members signed up as part of the healthcare plan. As part of that, there are 15 that we had signed up through our current patients. 50 City of Coppell residents were enrolled through funding by the City of Coppell. And this is something that, is even new to me. I've not heard of this before, I'll be honest with you. I used to run another clinic in McKinney, and we didn't know about this. But from my understanding, the Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment, which is a Medicaid waiver, the last several years, the clinic was getting substantial funding, between $300,000 and $500,000 a year, to provide healthcare for uninsured patients. And we had to meet certain metrics and patient outcomes to get this funding. And it was provided through funding that UT Southwestern received through a federal program and then provided to us. This funding ended. And our last, payment that we received was for fiscal year 2023. So that no longer exists for us. So it is a large amount of money that we are no longer getting. As we all know, Texas didn't expand Medicaid, so there wasn't that other option for us to receive that funding through the state or anything. And so this just talks a little bit about the impact of loss of funding. There's always obviously our service delivery, and do we have to limit services to our patients? I never want to do that, and I promise you I will find every way possible to continue all the services and adding more services to our patients. Because I understand, that it is difficult for healthcare. I don't want our patients to end up in the ER for their normal chronic disease management, and I don't think anybody wants that. So I am looking for other ways. That's why I reach out to our in-kind partners to get, medical supplies. So there's an organization in Dallas called Faith in Action. You can go there. It's a partner with Baylor, and clinics and nonprofits can go there. They give you a cart, and you can basically shop for medical supplies, medications, everything that they have at no cost to the clinic. And so there are ways that I am going about to reduce our expenses as well, but making sure that our patients are still getting the same care. And again, I am doing some outreach, of course, into the City of Farmers Branch. I have someone else helping me do that. We are attending back to school events. We are going out, wherever we can table at events. I'm doing that as well. Reaching out to businesses, apartment complexes, churches in the community, wherever I need to get the word out about our services. We're also reaching out to patients from Farmers Branch or residents from Farmers Branch who are no longer patients and trying to find out, why are you no longer a patient? From my understanding, some of that has to do with the cost of labs that were no longer free. But we're letting them know that as you come back and re-enroll and reestablish as a patient, we will pick up your annual labs, which is the biggest portion of lab costs for our patients. And then throughout the year, if you're a diabetic, it is heavily discounted, the labs for our patients. And I'll take any questions you might
Okay,
have.
thank you. So I'd just like to say, I think our Farmers Branch is a pretty diverse community, and we certainly have members of our community who are in need, whether they get those services through Woven or MetroCrest services, excuse me, or some other entities. We know that there's a need. And I staunchly believe reducing healthcare services and options and availability to our residents is a huge disservice to the community. And certainly this issue is compounded by the sources of funding that you once had that are not there now.
Correct. Yes.
And I would like to see the council see fit to leave you at what we had originally in the budget for the coming year and not add to your growing aggravation of trying to maintain services to our community.
And I want, the council to know and everyone that I am constantly looking for new grants. I spend a great deal of my time writing grants to other foundations. We have received funding from some, in particular for mental health counseling. That is new to the clinic. And I, am striving to continuing to reach out to other funders, but certainly we still need your support.
Council, any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
We've got
Jackie.
4 minutes.
I know you've been on the job for a short time. You got a big road ahead of you
Oh, yeah.
to do what needs to be done in light of some of the loss of funding and such. If you could go back to the statistics, January through June, I just want to get some clarity for those that are watching. I think if you just use the arrows on the keyboard, you might be able to move a little faster.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect, thank you. Total visits, 651 to 600, from 691. That's not just Farmers Branch,
That is Farmers Branch.
it's only Farmers Branch?
Yes, we have about 2,300 unique patients and about 9,800 patient visits a year for
Okay.
all of our patients.
Okay, so.
And that is the unique patients, that's the utilization that they're using. So,
Okay. So if we fast forward a couple more slides to the patient demographics based on
Yes,
race.
sir. That is,
All cities?
this year is all cities.
This year is all cities,
Yeah,
'cause-
just overall.
If about half of our population of Farmers Branch is of Hispanic origin, I find it odd that 34% would be Asian and 51%
Yeah, no, this
is
is
other,
all.
and such a small part would be considered Mexican American Indian, which is where I assume Hispanics
Yeah.
are characterized. Okay, very good. I brought this up the last time you were here. I think there's a huge opportunity to promote Woven. And you said it yourself, Farmers Branch, the Branch Church, right down the street from where y'all have been for many, many years, didn't even know that y'all existed.
Right.
Right. There's another nonprofit that operates across the street. They probably are very well aware of that, but I would just encourage you to continue that work that you're doing to get Woven's name out there. It's been around a long time, but I just think there's untapped visibility there.
Yeah.
To a very
And,
large
and part of that is being where we're located, inside Dallas Medical Center there in the medical office building.
Right.
And I have worked with the hospital, so they already have a direct referral form that they have, that if any patient comes into the emergency room or they're being discharged and they don't have health insurance, they can send them to us to be their medical home. But yes, we can't have a sign out there. We don't have, what I would love to have as a storefront clinic, so people can see us and can find us easily. But that's, not the case. We don't pay rent there. It's hard to give that up. I would, but it is a goal of mine to be out of there and to have a place that, people can just walk into and see right out on the street, so.
Okay, last question. You mentioned that COPL provides some funding. We've provided some funding. There are other cities,
Yes.
Dallas, Irving, maybe Richardson. People come from
Yes.
many different places. Do other cities, other than COPL and Farmers Branch?
Carrollton, you guys, Coppell, Addison, all provide funding. The city of Dallas does not. Their funding all pretty much goes to Parkland. I do want to meet with them, and that is something that I'm working on. But I believe in the past, the former ED has tried to meet with them and get funding. And Dallas, we have a large Dallas patient population, absolutely. I am trying to talk to other cities. I was just at a Richardson Chamber of Commerce event because I do want us to, we see patients from all over, as far as Fort Worth, as far as Anna, Louisville, all these areas. And my goal is to go to all these cities and ask them for funding.
Right. I think the demographics based on geographics would be very important there. My fear would be is that we're subsidizing a lot of Dallas folks coming. At the end of the day, humanity is humanity, and we want to be there.
Sure.
But, Dallas, I think, it'd be good to have that conversation.
Yeah. So just so everyone also, when we get funding from a city or from a grant that might be restricted, it is calculated out just for Farmers Branch. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've got to step in and end this now because we have to get down for a meeting that starts at 6 o'clock. So we will resume study session after regular council meeting.
Want to give council time to eat some food?
Can we do that? Start the meeting at 6:15?
David, do you have any issues with that, starting at 6:15 so council can eat?
Okay,
You'll
so,
not have food with a
that's
long
fine.
meeting in front of us.
So we will go downstairs right now. Please plan on being at the council chambers at 6:15 now. You can stop off in the city manager's office to grab a quick bite to eat.
Well, it's in the kitchen.
Kitchen right here.
Are we going to come back to
Thank
this
you.
agenda item when we reconvene?
Yes.
Okay.